Welcome to
Two
Immersive.
reactions.
That was all right. That was
We gave it a whirl.
yeah. Uh, Today we're doing a little Interstellar breakdown. I've skipped a few weeks on the extras just because we were getting ready for the wedding and we had a lot of other things going on. But we're gonna get back into the extras,
Yes.
and we. I think I like this movie more than you did. Um, it was a little confusing for you,
Yes.
but with like my base level understanding of physics and astrophysics, um, I'm no expert, but I could appreciate it and understand it a little bit more. Um, so we're gonna get into that. This video is by Heavy Spoilers. We already watched the movie, so no spoilers. Um, Anything else you have to say?
I hope that I learn more and I understand more watching the breakdown rather than going at it face first and not knowing a damn thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's my thing because I didn't
it
understand
is a little
lot.
confusing. I can understand how it would be if you don't know anything about that part of science.
Well,
But
I'm about to learn now.
we're about to learn. All right.
Here we go.
So Interstellar is one of Christopher Nolan's most ambitious movies. This is pretty much his 2001. The director has a number of references to that and other movies. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking it all down and talking about the hidden details in it, Easter eggs, and the true meaning of the movie along with its ending. Now you can tell from Christopher Nolan's movies that he's absolutely obsessed with time. It's laced throughout a lot of his work, with more obvious examples like Tenet, down to more subtle things like his non-chronological storytelling. Memento made the director a name, and this told the main story backwards so that we could be hit with lots of twists and reveals. Inception had time dilation as we got deeper into a dream, and both Batman Begins and The Prestige used flashbacks throughout. Dunkirk had different periods of time being shown to us, and in Interstellar, time is almost like a force fighting against the protagonists.
Yeah.
At its core, Interstellar to me has always been about a father sacrificing the time he has with his children in order to do his work. I'm sure this is something a lot of people can relate to, and it leads to one of the most devastating scenes in the film. Now, the
This hit
theory
me
of
hard.
relativity is laced throughout, with time being something that characters experience as moving.
It's a very interesting thing how they say the time
Yes.
part and how it's relatable, because a lot of people spend like a lot of their life working for something and not they're doing it for the betterment of other people, but
not for themselves.
not for themselves, but also not for the people, because really people just want to spend more time with the people they love,
Yes.
and they don't necessarily want anything else from them. But our society is in a way where we need to do that to survive. So it's just something you just come to accept.
Differently depending on where they are. However, this idea of time extends beyond that, and the ship, the Endurance, is even shaped like the face of a clock. We can see that it has a circular design with compartments going around it. In total, there are 12 of these, subtly hinting to us about this idea. I think the most devastating planet that they travel to is the water one, where we learn that the speed they experience time could cost them years on Earth. This is reflected in the soundtrack too, and the ticks you can hear in the music give the idea that time is working against them.
Like a metronome in the background of this, like,
Oh, that's that popping sound.
yeah.
That tick. Okay.
However, these ticks happen at the time they do for a specific reason. Every one of them happens at 1.25 seconds exactly. Broken down, this equates to one tick equaling 1 day on Earth. So you can literally hear the days ticking away as the crew search for what's happened on the planet.
That's insane.
I didn't actually discover
I
this
would never have
myself,
known
so
that.
if you're the person who did, then write it in the comments. No one claims it, then just give this Easter egg to everyone. And well done, mate. Give yourself a pat on the back for that amazing detail. This planet was ventured to by Miller, who sent back a signal saying it was safe to travel to. They clearly hadn't experienced the waves yet and thought it was safe, which is why they gave the green light. Due to the time dilation, we learn that Miller likely died minutes before their arrival, and knowing this at the start of the scene actually adds a lot to it. If you zoom in, you can make out this happening as the ship descends from the clouds. When they land, the waves that we see off in the distance behind them are the same ones that have just killed Miller. The Miller
Oh.
killer, if you will. Now, another nice detail as they come down is that the ripples in the waves are moving in different directions. This is because of the planet's proximity to a black hole, which is causing lots of gravitational anomalies. It's even possible that the planet could be safe, but due to the strong gravity field from the hole, everything is being pulled in. The black hole
Okay.
in the movie is something that's actually groundbreaking, and it was built to be as scientifically accurate as it could be. It's a full render of Einstein's equations spat out in IMAX on a 32,000 core render from a farm that
Whoa.
worked 20 core hours per frame. This means that each frame featuring it took roughly 100 hours to render.
Whoa.
The end result was so accurate that it actually brought forth real scientific insight, and so far 3 papers have been published on the information gained from it. This obviously wouldn't have been available in Einstein's day, but rendering it this way allowed for scientists to study a representation of it inside a computer. Named Gargantua, this means
Damn.
giant or colossal, and they explain it by folding paper and using a pencil to show how one can travel from one point to another. The first time I saw this example was back in Event Horizon, and Jane Foster mentioned both this movie and that when discussing it in Thor Love and Thunder.
There's
Now, the movie opens with Murphy's bookcase and
noticed.
some dust falling from a
Yes,
shelf out of view.
the dust.
Due to the events that happen at the
Okay.
end, we know this is caused by Cooper, and this is the first anomaly that brings in the drone. Now, the bookcase itself is actually filled with ones that share themes with the movie. There's the Stephen King book The Stand, which is about a post-apocalyptic world in which the last humans are trying to survive. Can tell it's that book instantly off the spine, because, dear me, size of that story. Everyone who's made it through that book knows what I'm talking about. Now, there's A Wrinkle in Time, which talks about higher dimensions, and it also includes a tesseract. There's
Oh.
Flatland, A Romance of Many Dimensions, Labyrinth, The Go-Between, and selected poems which deal with time and space. Lastly, when Cooper is watching his past self leave Murph, we can see on the shelf near his head the book Lois Lowry's The Willoughbys. This is the story about the effects that a parent's neglect has on their children, which is echoed in the
Wow.
scene of him
What the
leaving
heck?
Earth. At this point, we get
is
Nolan once more
layered.
playing with
Yes.
time as we see an
Layered.
older Murphy
Heavy.
being played by Ellen Burstyn. She talks about her father, and this is taking aspects of a documentary that appears later on at the end of the film to recount Murphy's childhood and also life on Earth. We see several survivors after this, and these are apparently taken from the Kensburn documentary, which is called The Dust Bowl.
Oh.
This 4-hour-long film chronicles the man-made ecological disaster,
Wow.
which was known
Yeah.
as the Dust Bowl.
Holy
It
shit.
affected 100 million acres of land
Oh.
in Texas and caused a lot of health issues. She talks about how
'Cause
her
they
father was a farmer, and we see a giant cornfield.
just
Now,
kept
Nolan
plowing
loves doing things
over the same
practically,
land, and
and this was
every
seen
time
in
you
Tenet
plow
when
it,
he crashed a plane just for a scene.
turns soil
This
into
is
dust.
the case in Interstellar 2, and rather than using CGI for these fields, he actually had 500 acres of corn planted for the film. Thrifty as ever, Nolan actually sold this once the movie was complete, and he made a profit back, which he used for the budget. Now, we discover in the movie that an event known as the Blight has ravaged all crops on Earth except for corn. This is the only surviving food source, and corn is laced throughout almost everything they eat. Murph brings it out a cornbread sandwich, they can only get popcorn at the baseball games, and a corny breakfast of pancakes and chowder is also given to them in bowls. Corn syrup is also used along with corn juice for their drinks. Delicious corn juice,
Wow.
available in all good shops now. Although Murph says her father was a farmer, we immediately cut to him as a pilot, referencing not only his past, but also the journey he takes in the film. Cooper is clearly very experienced, which is why he's picked for NASA. Now, we see Cooper's pilot knowledge later on when he's trying to reattach to the Endurance.
That
During the
was
spin,
quite-
Brand puts
Well,
a head
he is
into it,
hired
and this
as the
causes her to
pilot.
black out. Cooper,
So
on the
you
other
know
hand,
that
turns away from it, and thus
the
he stays
beginning.
conscious. But this pilot scene's a dream, and he wakes up to find Murph standing over him. Nolan often likes to spoil his movies early on, and we pointed this out in our Prestige video with the 2 opening shots in the film. These told us the twist from the opening frames, and Murph also spoils the end reveal here.
Sorry, Murph. Go back to bed, man.
I thought you were the ghost.
Later on, we learn that Cooper is in fact the ghost in Murphy's room, and
Spoiler alert.
Literally.
dust is also a big thing in the movie.
Dust. Anybody? No. Dust. Anybody? No. Dust. Anybody? No.
This is laced throughout how the people live, with plates being placed upside down and tops covering vehicles when they're not in use. The dust storms that roll in were also done practically as well, with Nolan hiring out a real town. Sand was lined along it, and then fans were put in place to blast it in to create the effect we see in the movie.
Yeah.
Nolan did clear it out in the end, and it adds to the realness that we see on screen.
Yeah, holy
Now,
crap.
come the end of the movie, Cooper's taken to a
Great
recreation
lengths.
of his home, and he's
Yeah.
told that it's been rebuilt exactly how it was on Earth. However, this isn't the case fully, and Coop runs his finger along the table for dust, which of course isn't there. Outside, Donald tells him about how a teacher at his kid's school is single, and how he should help repopulate the Earth. Might be a reach, well it is reaching, but he will end up going out to a planet at the end which has Brand and some embryos on it, where they'll help populate that world. Now, on the way to a parent-teacher conference, they see a drone drifting in overhead. In the first draft of the script... Oh my god, that's bloody Timothy Chalamet. I forgot he was in this. Anyway, never mind. In the
Who?
first
Oh,
draft of the
whatever.
script, the drone was supposed to be what Coop sent back with the equation of how to handle the gravity problem. However, this was later changed to what we get in the final film. The drone still has a left behind of that, and though it doesn't really serve much of a purpose, it indicates strange things are happening at the farm. Just before it swoops in, Coop explains Murphy's Law to his daughter and how anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Murphy's Law is something that we can't actually test for because any test that carries it out by Murphy's Law is doomed to fail. However, in the film, I think it takes a more optimistic approach. The laws of the universe have a balance to them, and thus, if things can go wrong, then they can go right too. Plan A and Plan B in the movie are seen as the two eventualities that could keep the human race alive. Initially, Plan A was that people would venture into space and send back a way for the remaining humans to travel into the stars. However, this was thought to be a pointless endeavour, and thus the real plan would be Plan B. This would carry the embryos into space that could then restart the human race. In the end though, both plans come to fruition and work out, hence Murphy's Law. There's also the mention of Newton's third law, which states that in order to go somewhere, you have to leave something behind. Cooper is of course leaving his family behind,
Rockets with
bringing
rocket
this
fuel.
idea into the film's themes and also its characters' actions. Now we discover later on that the drone is from India, and this is hinted
Cars
to
with
us when
fuel.
Cooper starts hacking it. In a split-second
Humans
shot, we
with
can see some
food.
text pop up on screen, and this is in Hindi. Now, as we mentioned earlier,
Oh.
the drone is actually
I
being pulled
noticed that.
towards the home due to the
don't know
gravitational anomalies that
what,
come from the
like,
Tesseract. This happens with the combine
Indian
harvesters
script looks
also
like.
being pulled towards the house later on. At school, Coop wants his son to go to college, and when this idea is shut down, he ends up bringing up his taxes.
Well, the university only takes a handful. They don't really have the resources
I
to...
still pay my taxes. And where's that money go? There's no more armies.
Well, it doesn't go to the university.
In actuality, these are being siphoned off to NASA, who have to be kept on the down low because of public opinion. The government has put out the idea that the moon landing was fake in order to keep people grounded and focused on being farmers. They are deliberately discrediting the past so that people look to the dirt. Tom doesn't want to accept this at first, but over time he starts to believe that his dad isn't coming back, and he goes back to looking at being a farmer. However, Murph doesn't, and deep down she continues to hope that her dad will
She
return.
knows what's
So
going
the
on.
teacher
He
says,
doesn't.
Okay, well, right now, we don't need more engineers. We didn't run out of television screens and planes. We ran out of food.
Now, they've also stopped putting money into medical equipment, and had MRI machines still been developed, then Cooper's wife's tumour would have been caught before she died. Now, as mentioned, they've secretly been putting money into NASA so that they can find a way to save the human race. Really nice touch in the book on the table, and you can see that there's a brown stain on the top that's caused by the dust. The dust rolls in at the Yankees game, and these are pretty crap players again due to people being pushed into being farmers. Coop ventures through the dust with his family, and the sound effects used remind me a lot of their journey through space. The truck is also very much like the ship, travelling through an inhospitable area whilst those inside are protected from it. Figuring out that the dust leaves coordinates, Cooper heads out of them with Murph as a stowaway. Nice touch as he opens the truck door, and we can see that he's stuffed a rag in the vents to stop the dust coming in the car. Upon arriving at the base, we see a sign that says NORAD, which is now what NASA's going under. This is a real-life institution, and it stands for the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Now, in the first of many 2001 similarities, we meet TARS, who is an AI that has a voice based on HAL. Like HAL, the machines journey into space with the crew, but they don't turn evil and try and kill them all. Now, TARS is called this because it's actually an anagram of star. We meet Case on the Endurance, and another one is called Kip. This is actually named after Kip Thorne, who helped to make the film as scientifically accurate as possible. On the front
Wow.
of TARS, we can also see dots next to his name, and this is actually Braille to help blind people
I like
with
how
it.
Kip is
Other
destroyed.
2001 references
I
happen
wonder
when we see
if
the
it
truck
took a lot
transition in the spaceship
for
as
him to
Cooper's
get
driving away.
all this stuff
2001 is
correct in the
famous for
movie.
its smash cut from a bone to a ship, and this allows us to immediately fill in the blanks of what's happened in between. There's also Cooper seeing messages from his children on TV,
What
which
do they
too happens
do
in 2001,
about, like,
early on
hiding
with a
the
traveler getting
rocket
one from his
launch?
daughter. He missed out on her birthday to continue with his work, and it's much like how Cooper missed out on his kids. Now here we're
Okay.
introduced to Dr. Brand, played by Anne Hathaway. Hathaway sports a short haircut throughout the movie, and though it's a slick look, it's actually been done for a reason beyond just how it looks. In Zero Gravity, long hair would obviously flop about, and having it shorter would save a ton on the CGI budget. Cooper is reunited with his daughter, and we discover that NASA
Save
are
money.
working on something known as the Lazarus Project. Alongside Jesus, this biblical figure is the only person who's come back to life, and the name is picked to talk about restarting the human race. We get a blurred picture of Matt Damon on the wall amongst all the astronauts, but it's something you might only be able to make out on a first watch. Damon's casting was kept secret so that people
Yeah.
weren't sitting thinking, where the hell is
That
Matt
kind of
Damon?
detail you
Instead
do
of
not
focusing on the
see.
plot. This is the same with Casey Affleck and
the
also
first
Topher
watch.
Grace. Brand Sr. takes Cooper for a tour, and he explains the two plans, and the one that we learn was a lie. On a second watch, Kane's performance takes on a whole new meaning, and we understand what really drives him. He weaponizes the idea that Murph and her generation will die if they stay on Earth, which pushes Coop forward. He knows that a parent will want to save their child, as he himself also does this.
Yeah, he
Brand Sr. then
manipulates them
sends
all.
his daughter into space because he knows that's the best way for her to have a chance. Kane also has
Okay.
some incredible
Yeah.
mannerisms in the movie
See,
that
now
you
it's
only pick
clicking.
up on a second watch.
This is
He's
why I like
evasive
doing
when people
these.
get too close to learning the truth, and he acts very sheepish around certain conversation topics. Cooper gives
Yeah,
his
he's
goodbyes, and
directing
also
the whole
says,
thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be your ghost right now.
He doesn't
eventually
want them
he
to
of course
figure
will
out
be, and even the books
because
falling
he knows
don't
it's
stop
not
him from
possible.
going.
But
Love the
she
little
eventually
goodbye he
does
has with
figure it
Tom,
out.
and it's very much him saying that he's the man of the house now. He lifts the blankets up in his car, and whilst Murph was hiding under them last time,
Yeah.
she's no longer there.
I
They
noticed
make it
that,
to the
yeah.
Endurance, and it's designed like most
saw that.
ships where everything is symmetrical. This is so that things can be operated no matter what orientation the person on board has. At this point we hear the poem Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
This is about how life is precious and that it should be fought for. This is something that Coop later adopts against Man, and Man even drops the poem whilst all this is going on.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day.
Now they go down for a long nap, and upon waking up we can see Cooper winding his watch. This is one that keeps ticking, and it winds because of movement, and due to him sleeping this would have completely stopped. At this point they hit Saturn and then travel into the black hole. Lots of similarities to Contact with this scene, and we see as time and space folds around them in order to propel them out of the galaxy. They have 3 planets to visit, and no prizes for guessing the first one, it doesn't end up going well for them. As they head down we hear,
A little caution would go and get you killed, just like reckless driving.
this pays off later too when Coop has to dock the Endurance.
Cooper, this is no time for caution.
As I'm sure you can guess, this planet fascinates me. I love the way that the water is so shallow because it's being sucked up to create the giant tidal waves. There's a desperate run for the
Oh.
ship,
They're on the bottom
and as
of
it's
an
hit,
ocean.
we catch
Oh,
TARS prepping
shit.
itself to hold Brand in place. Now, they lose decades and also Doyle. We see an astronaut face down in
As
the water
the
as they escape the planet.
black hole
and
is
what
sucking,
really
like
works about
the
the scene
moon
is that we
Mhm.
don't
makes
know who
tidal
this is.
waves.
This could be Doyle, however, it could just as easily be Miller due to the time dilation. Upon returning back to the ship, they find Romley, who's now a broken man. Cooper also gets messages from his children, and he misses out on Tom meeting his first love, him having his first child, and we also learn that they sadly died due to the blight. Donald passed away too, and we watch him go from an optimistic child to a devastated adult in seconds. They name their second child Coop after him, but he's not been there for his son throughout his hottest moments. We then see a message from Murph who tells her that she's the same age as her dad was when he left. We then spend some time with her and Professor Brand. He discusses how all the rivets they're pumping into ships could have been bullets, and we learn that the government actually wanted to slaughter some of the population to make it easier on the rest. Brand earlier talked about NASA dropping bombs from the sky, but he's got them all pulling together because they believe they can survive. To Professor Brand, the lie is a positive so that people have hope, and he further avoids talk of the equation and how it's not really working. Upon discovering that Brand had a thing with Edmonds, they decide to head to Man for a look at Man's ugly side. It's man versus man, man being the reason for his own demise, and all of the man puns that you can think of.
Yeah.
Man Damon, f***'s sake. Now, Brand brings up how love is a force that we can't really quantify. It's something that exists across all dimensions in space. I feel like Nolan is very much trying to almost give us signs to our emotions to explain what drives the characters in this journey. Back at the farm, we see as the blight returns, whilst the siblings share some corn on the cob. Murphy learns of the lie on Brand's deathbed, and it's a chilling scene to know the planet is doomed.
Well, also, she's like a younger, she hasn't had like kids, or like she's still in love with this person's out in the middle of nowhere. She's definitely like a younger person saying that, because like a more like wizened character like the pilot is way more like attuned to like his feelings and what he needs to do, as opposed to her.
Murph is desperate to know whether Cooper knew and left her there to die, but she doesn't get an answer. From here we see,
This is a man's world.
we obviously learn that the great and apparently noble man wasn't really the best of us, but he truly demonstrates what humanity is. Selfish, cowardly, and happy to bring others down with him. He's given the green light even though he's on a planet that's doomed. Things are suspicious from the off, with the world being so cold that even the clouds are frozen. Kip is dismantled as well, with man saying that he started to degenerate. Humans obviously have suspicion of AI, and even most of the early interactions with TARS are laced with the idea that things could go wrong. Nolan is once more playing on the plotline with Hal in 2001 and using our assumptions to make us trust man more than the machines. I love Damon's performance as he comes out of the sleep sack. You can see genuine relief mixed with sorrow and happiness. He's been through a lot, and he drops this iconic line.
Pray you never learn just how good it can be to see another face.
At this point, they learn the truth about Plan B. Another nice subtle detail is that Professor Brand calls it Plan B to make it sound like it's a fallback option.
Yeah,
he knows humanity won't work together if they don't think there's hope, and thus he makes it sound like this is the one they don't want to resort to, when really this is the main plan. Back on Earth, Murph refuses to give up, and she also carries the secret because she knows if the truth is revealed that people will panic. Here we get a further shot of the bookcase, and can also see Moby Dick. Metaphorically, this is about an unsurmountable force of nature that's impossible to overcome, much like what they're facing on Earth. At this point, they decide to send TARS into the singularity in order to glimpse the core of the black hole so they can send data back to Earth. He heads out with Cooper, and you might notice that you can see the ground through the landscape as they travel out. This is because they're actually walking on frozen clouds, which makes the landscapes themselves. On Earth, we see as Murph goes back to her room, and in a flashback, we watch her place her watch on the bookcase. To the left, we see a book titled The Big Nowhere, and to the right is a biography of Charles Lindbergh. He was a pilot, much like Cooper, and the Big Nowhere is what Cooper is currently in during the scene as he's behind the case in the Tesseract. Lots of timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly stuff.
Is it kind of making more sense to you?
Yes, now it is.
What have you learned?
What have I
Just
learned?
curious.
Human race, how thoughts, feelings, time, science
Yeah.
can all...
There's a lot of layers to this.
Yes.
There's a ton.
Like at first I was trying to understand, but then I didn't realize the professor's real reason. And I was like, he's just lying. That's terrible. But he did it because if he told them the truth, no one would go. They'd be like, I'm dying. I'm just going to die here.
Yeah.
But he was trying to save something and recreate. So he still did it, not in a great way, but it was the most effective, direct, fastest way.
Yeah, just to get the project done.
Mm-hmm.
But It doesn't save anyone else.
No.
But technically, he's here whilst also being with man. Now, I love the mirroring of the environments here, with the inhospitable atmosphere of
Like,
man
he
being
shows
almost
selfishness.
uninhabitable like Earth is. This is the same as back on the farm, with Tom's wife and child having breathing problems due to the air on the farm becoming corrupted. Man's true nature is revealed, and he gave a thumbs up because he was afraid of being left alone, doomed to die by himself. The astronauts were picked for the Lazarus mission because they didn't have any attachments to Earth. However, humanity as a species, at its core, is a social one, and thus man ended up reaching out. Detachment from humans is often seen as a necessity for space travel, and during the Russian space dog program, strays were picked to be part of the missions. This is because they didn't have an attachment to an owner, and therefore wouldn't suffer from the anxiety that would come from being apart. Professor Brand kept the truth secret because he knew that people wouldn't work together for the betterment of their fellow man if they didn't have some stake in it too. Man actually knew the truth, and he demonstrates that Brand was correct by pulling the astronauts in for his selfish needs. Murph is forced from the farm, and she drives along a queue of people heading to live underground. We get a quick cut of some kids on the back of a truck, and the girl here is actually Christopher Nolan's real-life daughter Flora. Nolan had to spend some time away from his own daughter in order to make a career in Hollywood, and I think having her brought out to this set is very much him making it so the pair can spend some time together. Man starts to play up that he's actually the good guy in this situation, and I love this line.
No. No! What's the matter? There's a 50-50 chance you're gonna kill yourself.
Those are the best odds I've had in years.
This is at the point where he does "Do not go gentle into that good night," and this later appears at the end on the plaque as we see Cooper being shown about the station. Murph drives back out of the farm, and she cuts through the cornfield, echoing the earlier journey from the movie.
Yes.
She burns part of the field, mirroring the beginning of the film, in which a neighbouring farmer's field was set on fire to show crops were dying out. Cooper chose to farm corn, which is why he lasted longer, and this is why Tom sees this as being such an important issue. Romley then starts up Kip, and the robot explodes, killing him in the process. However, Taz survives unscathed, hinting at how he's built to experience extreme conditions and can also survive a black hole. Couldn't really, but this is a movie. Now, in space, man's killed after he fails to dock due to the auto-docking system being disabled. He is warned about this, but similar to the helmet line, he'd rather take the risk against the odds because he's got nothing else. At this point, the explosion has no sound, and that's because it exists in space.
Well, how they do it in the movie is unreal.
Now, after messing up the dock, we get the best scene in the movie.
They just came up with a
Random bull.
It's just sci-fi. They came up with a sci-fi reason
Completely loved the score here.
to make the
Zimmer
movie
knocked it out the park.
work.
And the visuals
like
in
this.
IMAX on the OLED with a 4K Blu-ray, I was like, God damn. Now, sadly, the Endurance is slipping towards Gargantua, and thus they use the gravity of the black hole in order to slingshot Brand around to Edmund's planet. Apollo 13 had something similar carried out in order to return home after the mission went awry. They swung around the moon to throw themselves back as they weren't able to land on the surface. We see the escape thrusters being fired and get a split-second shot of their names. They're LMAO-1 and LMAO-2. I was laughing my ass off during this, and maybe Nolan, maybe he does have a sense of humour, even though everyone says he doesn't. But I think he does. Now, the ending of Interstellar is something that still confuses people, but I believe it's more straightforward than people think. We watch as Cooper travels into the black hole, which somewhat echoes the journey at the end of 2001. This takes Cooper into the Tesseract, which is a term that's gained popularity with the MCU, but it's been about way longer than that. A Tesseract is a 4-dimensional cube, and it's what Cooper moves through when he's behind the bookcase. As humans, we see things in 3 dimensions, with the 4th dimension being time, hence why this shape was picked. Now, the way I see the ending is that the humans from the future had travelled into the 4th dimension, and they could see all of time and space. This is much like when you pick up a book, and you can see the story and move both forwards and backwards in it. You can jump to any point in said story, and you're able to travel through it without restrictions. However, you can't actually influence the events of the story, and it will always play out the exact same way. The characters in the book are the ones experiencing it, and this is very much the case with Cooper. Now, the book is the device in which the story plays out, which in Interstellar is what the Tesseract is. Cooper is the character in it who can influence the events, and the 5th dimensional humans are the readers that are basically what we see playing out. The film is a similar metaphor too, and much like how we can watch Cooper and jump about from scene to scene, they're able to do the same thing. They've created the device for Cooper to travel through, but they can't really do it themselves, which is why they don't just send a direct message telling us what to do. If they did, it would also create a paradox, as the events in the film need to play out the exact same way in order for them to play out the way they do. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is why Coop can't stop himself leaving. At this point, Murph puts a hand on the bookcase, and she touches one written by Diana Gabaldon. This is the author of Outlander, which too features time travel. Working with Tars, he passes on the message to his daughter on how to crack the gravity equation. They put it into her watch, and upon leaving her earlier in the movie, he put her watch side by side with his to talk about the passage of time. This memento has brought with it the Morse code on how to save humanity,
It makes sense
and
to
Murph
me
figures it out.
now more because
Cooper gives the first handshake to Brand, and he's dropped off beside Saturn, which is where he's picked
they're
up.
going like
As
forwards and
mentioned earlier,
backwards.
things like MRI machines and
in
complex
time.
hospital equipment weren't worked on because of the lack of
So
food.
he's going backwards
Here
in
we see
time
though
to
that Cooper Station is packed with them
make her
due
realize
to humanity once more focusing on technology.
he's there.
This is also how Murph has
even
been
when
able
he's
to live for
not.
so long, because medical care is now far more improved. As I've been saying, it's called Cooper Station, and Cooper assumes it's named after him, but it's actually after Murph. We see the plaque mentioned earlier, and it shows how little humanity actually knows about the mission due to thinking everyone gave their lives. Man is on there as well, showcasing how they don't even know about his betrayal. Of all the people left, Brand is the last survivor, and she's now reached Edmund's planet.
They
Cooper
just
has some
figured
time
out
back on the porch with Tars, echoing earlier shots with Donald, and he says his line,
I don't care much for this, pretending we're back where we started. I want to know where we are.
Again, this is showcasing
I
one of
agree
the
with that.
reasons that he ends up heading out. Finally, he's reunited with his daughter. I'm not crying. Oh, cry. Now we see she's had countless children and grandchildren, showing that humanity has grown rather than dying off. The pair say their goodbyes, and he fulfills his promise to see his daughter again. No parent should watch their child die, and thus he heads out in the stars in order to join Brand. We catch her on a planet that looks more similar to the rocky lands of Earth, but Edmund's died before she managed to reach him. She buries him, and with Tars in his fighter suit, Cooper heads out there. We close out with her walking towards the camp, which is a bright beaming light. It's only small, but it offers a glimpse at what's to come in the future. Plan B is going to start there, and both Cooper and Brand will be the Adam and Eve of this new world. They're the people who left the quote-unquote paradise they had and went out in the harsh wasteland after discovering knowledge
like
and
the
had to
rest
make their own way.
of
That ends the movie.
Why can't they
and
just
it
go
also
back to
ends
where
with
humanity
our
come
breakdown
over
too.
too? I mean, I
really
guess
hope you enjoyed it,
humanity
as a
on
lot
that
of
side
work
is
went
fine
into
now.
it. And again, a huge thank you for checking the video out. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check.
And make sure you check out this video. I'll put a link in the description, and it is in the thumbnail, the actual picture of it, so you can see that too. And I see, like, I'm seeing it way different now. Way different. And originally I thought at the end of the movie, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense because it'd be like a time paradox. How do you go back in time and like change something and have it
But
like,
now,
it would create a paradox where it continually happens over and over and over and never actually fixes it. But now that I'm like concepting it as he goes back to give information and then that changes how she, because it only affects her, so technically it's not a paradox, or it doesn't create a paradox, which is what I was thinking in the beginning, that it would change things, like, you know, if you know what a paradox is, you know what I'm talking about. But and also with that end part,
when Coop went through the black hole,
yeah,
I thought they who created the black hole had saved images for him to contact her. I
No.
know that it was for her, not for him.
yeah.
I thought it
Well,
was for him.
It's a
How to get
device.
out of
It's like an interface. Like, we're looking at a computer screen right now. That's an interface of something. They created an interface for him to be able to look backwards and forwards
Yes.
in the future.
I
how
thought,
he wanted to and affect it to be able to change things through way of gravity phenomenon. So he would like push the book, and it was just like sending like some sort of gravitational anomaly through the interface to affect her timeline. So knocking the book off, uh, putting the dirt on the floor in binary, just by affecting gravity in their timeline. Because, like they said, gravity goes through time, can pass through time back and forth. Like they said, when they folded the paper, you can go
yeah.
through it and you can go like warp it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, so that thing that he was interacting with was doing that for him. So he could interact with gravity like a pencil on paper. Like he could use gravity to affect the past. Not directly talk through it because you can't do that, but you can affect gravity through it. But in a real black hole, it doesn't work like that at all. They're not like, they don't like do that. Once you go into a black hole, it like just splits
That's what I.
all of your matter into
Yeah,
the
that's what I
smallest building blocks possible and just consumes it.
Mm.
And it becomes part of the density of that massive stellar material. And I forgot what I was going to say about how, oh yeah, how Coop's reality, when he goes to be with forgot her name, the woman at the end, when he leaves to go to her, they had fixed like human reality, like the normal humans, and they did plan A and B. They did them both.
Oh.
They were successful in doing both.
He came back and then he went back for her.
Yeah, they got plan B done and plan A by figuring out how to use gravity when he like programmed it into her watch. So they figured out both. I didn't even realize that while I was watching the movie.
Now. Yeah.
But
do you think that Cooper and that lady, I forgot her name, I apologize, are gonna repopulate on that planet or go back
they have
to
embryos.
Earth?
They have like a bunch of embryos that they're
the
going
ones
to
that she was checking that she pulled out,
yeah,
right?
they're gonna make humans out of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now they're gonna repopulate the embryos on that planet, or are they going to?
Both of them are doing, both like the human A plan is working fine, so they're going to just do whatever they want in space, and human B plan of creating a new home for humans is working fine. So both are happening. Like they're existing on that like space station outside of Earth or wherever it is outside of the Jupiter, whatever that black hole anomaly that they went through is.
Gargantua?
No, not there. But the wormhole that they went through to go to the new place with the.
Oh, okay.
They have a space station around there, and they're surviving there. And they have Plan B, which is to start a whole new civilization of humans. Which are both are fine.
Okay. Wouldn't Cooper's son realize after losing first wife and first child that you would listen to your sister who has more knowledge and like take into account of what she's trying to say? Do you want to lose
He's
that?
also brainwashed in the way everyone was brainwashed. They don't want their money being spent on space. They don't want any of their stuff. Like, they're focused on, like he said in the description, like, the U.S. government, like, psychologically positioned the population into focusing on
Well, yeah.
farming
Yeah.
and making this work, because they can't think about anything else. They can't think that the space missions are an option and that we should be pushing it there, because they need to focus like a majority of the population into just making food, because if they don't make food, then they all die, because all of the food sources are going away. So it's harder and harder to make food enough so you can feed everybody. So most of the people, which is how like 99% of all of human history has been, most people are making food
Valid point.
up until this like last few hundred years. A majority of the people are creating food for other people to eat, which is what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
and then as like industrialization came along and it was easier to create food with less manpower, then
Mm-hmm.
you get all of the other things that come out from human civilization. And I think that's just the natural course of human evolution with technology, is less and less people will need to do fundamental things for society to function, and there will be more and more people able to do things that are not fundamental for human society. And it's just going to continue that way forever until we get to a point where probably our society is so autonomous that no one needs to do anything for human civilization to move forwards. There will be like scientists and people who like advance the process more, but and that just comes with a whole cultural shift of our like known reality, where there's many different routes that could go. Like people could become more adventurous and go out into the space themselves and just do whatever they want, or we become more like introspective and everyone's just living in their own little bubble type reality, which is, it is what it is. More choice on what humans want to do with their time.
Yeah.
And less dictation by human society on telling you what you should be doing with your time, what you have to be doing with your time. It's just the trajectory we're on, unless we get annihilated in some way, like a dust storm, plague.
Yeah. All right.
But besides that, we enjoy doing these extras, and I'm sorry for the rant there. I realized I just probably ranted for like 5 minutes, but whatever. It is what it is.
I enjoy doing the deep dives because I can understand more, realize more, find out more, rather than just spending an hour or 3 hours going into a blind and having no idea what is going on or why it's going on or why they came up with certain ideas or why things were done like this way.
Yeah.
I can figure it out.
Yeah, it's good to do these, and some people will want to see them. If you have any ideas for extras that are movies that we've reacted to, good videos on YouTube that you want us to see, let us know in the comments of these videos or of a reaction that we do, and we'll react to it. 100%. We'll do it. With movies, there are so many different people who want us to watch so many different movies. We have 4 years of movies. If we were to watch a movie every week like we've done, it will take 4 years to get through all the movies. And that will increase as the channel gets more, grows more, and I can actually dedicate time to doing this full time, which I am not currently. Um, it is what it is. But beyond that,
We appreciate you.
yes. Yes, we do.
Deep in our very small hearts.
Lord. My
No, but
lord.
seriously, we do.
Yes, we do. We appreciate the comments and you
Mhm.
watching the extras, because that's normally not what reaction people
Even
do. They
like
don't do
breaking it
reactions.
down in their comments.
Yeah,
It's nice too.
reading the comments, reading all the
Yes.
descriptions of movies in the comments, and
Mhm.
we like to keep the conversation going with extras and keeping.
Especially where people like they give us their point on where they understood it, what they picked up on it,
Yeah,
or their opinions. I
yeah,
like
we
that
miss
too.
we miss some things, which is first time reaction stuff.
Mhm.
But besides that, we thank you for watching
Immersive reactions.
extras.
Yes.
If you like the video, please like and subscribe. It helps us get recognition on our videos, and we'll react to more in the future. Thank you.